No temptation is overtaking you except what is common to man. Are vampires common to man? Hello, welcome to the HolmFront. I am Tyler, your host, and to my right, as always, is Mitch, my overly artistic friend. Mitch,
Hi.
I look a little shorter than you, I think.
Well, that's because you're shorter than me in real life.
That's why do we have to point out my insecurities on camera? Okay, so do we have anything to announce? By the way, I forgot to ask before we started the show. Is there anything going on in your world that
Yeah,
you want to?
it's supposed to be a
advertise?
thing where I let you know in advance, and I always forget because
Idiot.
you always ask me on the show, and then
I
I have
do.
nothing to prepare. But no, yeah, I think I'll have my video come out at the end of May.
Wait, which video is this?
The one I've been teasing for a while.
Oh,
the
the
commentary one.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because I'd like to do like.
Are we saying what it's about? I almost just did. So
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I already talked what it was
All right.
about in a separate video, but yeah, it's about like Metroid games. I'm just like comparing them. But yeah, I have it set up to. I was trying to do like a couple back to back is what I wanted to do, but I was like, it's taking me a while to get to the others, so I may as well just release it. Anyways, we're here to talk about something else.
We are. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. May potentially, maybe.
On my own channel.
Who knows? And then we
subscribe,
please. Okay, so we saw a movie this week.
Yeah,
What did we see?
we saw Sinners.
Saw Sinners,
And
which
we actually did a trailer react because it was a really cool trailer,
we did.
and now we're delivering on that promise to see the movie.
Look at us.
I think the best thing to do is just to kind of like, this is an interesting movie. This is kind of a weird movie, and it's going to be a very enlightening conversation, I think. So here's what I'll just say. There's nothing else to see at the theater right now. I was looking it up, and you can see The Accountant 2,
Yeah.
which is an awful title from a movie that wasn't very good. You could see The Amateur, which is an awful title to a movie that's probably not very good. You could see Until Dawn, which is a horror movie with really bad reviews. You can see Minecraft.
Isn't Until Dawn? Isn't that a vampire thing too?
I don't know. I thought it was a game.
Yeah, whatever. We'll look it up
But-
later, probably.
Yeah, so there's that. Or you can see there's like King of Kings, which is like a remake of, an old story that we're all familiar with. We all know it. So you just take your kids to see that one.
I think that's an Angel Studios animated film. And I think it was for Easter.
Okay,
So
sure.
it's just,
Yeah, but I mean,
send it
it's
in.
like
So yeah, it's a kids movie.
you're
You
not
take
gonna
the
get
family.
anything new, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So like, if you want to go to the theater and see a movie, Sinners is your bet. So just go and watch it. It's worth seeing, despite everything else we're going to talk about it, because it's not quite as good to us as it seems to be for everyone else. Like, it's overall in the positive range, so I think that's how it's getting its positive reviews. It's just like no one's willing to say like it's a bad movie, because it's not a bad movie. There's good things about it, but it doesn't quite work. So we're gonna like unpack why.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, so it looks incredible.
Yeah,
the trailer was great.
What are the things you liked, like just filmmaking wise?
Good question. I don't know if anything like it's solid. So, but it's kind of meat and potatoes filmmaking wise, in my opinion.
Okay.
It didn't seem like it had anything. Like if you see Nosferatu, like that's a masterpiece in filmmaking, right? The
Yeah.
cinematography, direction, and stuff. This one's probably not so much in that vein, but it's trying to tackle some interesting source material. So that is much more what was interesting to me rather than the technical
Mhm.
aspect of it. Did you see anything technically interesting to you?
I mean, well, everyone's talking about how incredible the music is, and I would agree with
The
that.
music is good. That's
The
fair.
music plays a really big role in this movie, which we'll talk about more later. So yeah, the music's incredible. I thought the cinematography was quite nice. I really loved all the warm yellows and the kind of contrast with like the blues and the outside. 'Cause like the synopsis, we should probably go over that.
Yeah.
Do you want to handle that one?
Sure. So it's about what's about the main character. Well, I guess the main character. This is where I stumble a little bit because not really sure the main characters officially.
It's
But
like can't even go with synopsis without.
Exactly. Got to say something. So apparently it's about his name. Well, they call him Preacher Boy when he starts singing, but his name is Sammy. He's the son of a preacher, and he works on a plantation. So it starts with him picking his cotton, and he's in this community.
Yeah, it's like 1930 something, right?
32, I believe.
32. Okay.
So it's about him joining up with his cousins to start what they call as a juke. It's essentially just a nightclub at the time for that community specifically. And he has a guitar, so he wants to play blues. That's pretty much like the
that's
core
his
of it.
story. Yeah. In terms of like the steps in it, like his cousins are like, I mean, they never say it, but it's pretty obvious that they were doing some.
No, they do say it.
Did they say they were in a
Yeah,
gang
they
or
went to
whatever?
Chicago and worked for Capone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
So
might have missed that.
they are two, and this is where we'll get into the details a little bit more later. But so they're both played by Michael B. Jordan.
Which I don't like.
They're twins. Get into that too. But they leave the plantation to go to Chicago to look for their wealth, their riches, right?
Yes.
So they kind of set up this prodigal son type narrative because they return and they want to bring back what they've earned, right? Bring back home the fact that they've gained riches, but no one's really sure how they've done it. But everyone
Right,
kind
that's
of
what I meant,
suspects
because
that
you don't
it's
see anything
right.
of what they did in
You
Chicago.
just know that they come back, they're well dressed now, and they have money. They buy this
Mhm.
place, they want to start a juke. So they come back and they hire on Sammy to be the main attraction essentially for this new place.
Yeah, and like the first like 20 to 30 minutes of the movie is pretty much just them like gathering allies, sort of like picking out people to like play at the joint or to serve drinks or do whatever, and they have to kind of persuade them a little bit into doing it. And then when they and then like they get there and that it's that evening they're going to do their grand opening, and then there's like a big sequence where the characters interact some more. So you kind of like you do some slow character building stuff or like stories like premise building, and then you get like the joint, and then it's just vampires attack and it's them killing vampires.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the premise of the movie. So the rest we're gonna spoil some stuff, but even if I feel like even if whatever we say here, it's probably still worth seeing on your own. Just because this is very much like a vibes movie. That was my takeaway when it ended. I thought, all right, so I have to just kind of like feel my way through this movie, especially because there was so much music. Like there was a point at which like it's like the villains get like a musical number too, and I was like, geez, another one? Is this a musical or what are we doing here? Like just so much music. Not as much as A Complete Unknown. That one, it was really getting tedious. This one, it was just that one part where I was like, all right, I just got done with a song. Now we got another one. And they don't like stop and break out into song, but they're like the thread of music is always present. And it happens in like scenes that you wouldn't really expect it. Like it never really stops and just goes, okay, music, go away. We're just doing like a scene now. We're just trying to convey some character stuff. No, the music's always there, like, and it's strong. It's like intense. It wants to call attention to itself, but in a good way. So it works for it, but it is just different than what you're probably used to seeing.
And we did say, I mean, the music is good. It's worth the listen for sure.
But it does change, like, but you see where I'm going with, like, it's like a vibes movie because the music is so pronounced. Right. So you can kind of like, but the thing is this movie is a terrible irritation to you because you want it to make more sense than it does.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know how to go into that too far yet.
Well, I'll give you a bone. I feel like this is two movies.
Yeah. So that's basically our condition on recommending it is that when you go into it, just think of it as two films. And that was probably
or three, if that helps you.
Yeah, so we'll get into that in a second. So why do you think two movies? I guess let's start there.
Okay, because there's a movie about like segregation and displacement and like the burdens of slavery, and these kind of themes are all like present in the movie. They're not necessarily always overtly discussed, which was very refreshing. So it didn't feel like it was breaking that fourth wall to be like like use like political talking points of today. It felt like everybody was playing it true to the time, but the themes were there. And so I thought that's interesting. There's like some commentary stuff happening. And then like there's that other half of the movie, which is a movie about just killing a bunch of vampires, which is cool, but it's just not quite the same thing. And they don't always jive together. I have like a perfect example too. It is kind of like later into the movie, but there's this one part where the villain, like the main vampire guy, he's like got one of the characters and he's like, "Ugh, like I'm gonna kill you," kind of thing. But then he just started talking and he had a lot to say. And in the background it's playing like it was almost like rock music or something.
Mm.
So it's like there's this fight happening, you got rock music, and I'm thinking to myself, well, that's telling me it's just cool action kills vampires now. But then like he's got this monologue and I'm like, well, if he's saying stuff, then it must matter for the story. So that's where it's like the two are kind of like coming head to head. And it almost didn't work in that first viewing because I don't even remember anything that he said. He was going on and on about some kind of like baptism or whatever, and then like they kill him or whatever, and so and then
I
it's
think-
like okay,
I think I remember enough of that monologue to cover for you there. But okay, so the two movies are the segregation plantation South.
Well, yeah, like the social commentary of
Right.
the Deep South, basically, because this takes place in what was it, Mississippi?
Yes.
I think, yeah, okay. And then like you were talking too, like after the movie ended, like there were certain things I was like, I kind of picked up on a few, but they didn't quite like land. I wasn't sure where to place them. So, it opens with the idea that like playing like blues music is like this healing thing for like a community, but it can also attract evil. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I was like, I feel like I've heard this kind of thing before. And then afterwards, you were talking about Robert Johnson and that whole legend. And I was like, that's fascinating. I totally forgot about that guy who made like a real life deal with the devil, a Faustian bargain, straight up.
Apparently. So they say. Yeah. So when I saw the trailer, when we did this react, that's what came to mind. So
okay. So you were tapping into this energy right from the beginning then.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how could you not? It's the time period. It's the blues. It's talking about. I mean, it alluded to the undead. So I kind of saw this.
Well, vampires are undead, so I guess we
Right.
didn't know it was vampires from the trailer though,
Right,
which
but
I
you-
appreciated.
That's fair. Yeah. So, okay. So I kind of see this as three because you
it's
have
3 movies now.
That's because you have the first act, which is establishing that time period and what is going on there, and then you have
okay.
the vampire movie because he separates it. That's what is so frustrating to me. We'll get into that.
Yes.
And then the third act where it's like the vampire, you're fighting against them. You're like trapped in the house, and anyway,
okay,
and they go up against them and figure out their ways of killing them and stuff.
Yeah.
So, because you have like the face off, but the face off in the monologue that you forgot is him telling Sammy what he wants from him.
okay.
So-
what does he want from him? I thought he just wanted to turn him into a vampire.
No, he wants
Wanna drink his
to
blood.
make music with him. He's like, make music,
Oh.
and like we can. I think he's trying to create more of him or something. But
Oh.
remember, okay, so the premise of the film coalesces into a song that
Wait a
Sammy
minute.
sings.
Wait a minute. Does he want to do that so he can attract more vampires and take over the world?
That's I don't know what the like master plan is. but
Sorry. Okay. Go
something
ahead.
along those lines. So he's talking to Sammy, but the thing about what Sammy had done earlier is he sang this song that was I forget what the monologue is, but there's a person talking when he's singing that song,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about how sometimes a song can be so good it'll pierce the veil between future, past, and living and dead.
Yes.
Here's the problem. Is that earlier in the movie, they introduce you to the vampire.
Right. So you're thinking to yourself, when you hear that premise in that opening monologue of the movie, like you're thinking to yourself, well, they're going to play the song. And when he starts to play it, you're like, oh man, he's going to pull down this veil, which is going to
Attract evil.
attract the evil. And then the vampires are going to walk through it, right? But
Right.
that's not what happens. Like the vampires are just there. They're already there.
Yeah, so it's not the fact that the vampires already exist. That's fine, I guess. You can make that work. But it's not, he doesn't just exist. He's in the South. He's in the same state. And in fact, he goes after a guy that is related to someone they interacted with earlier in the film. So this vampire is already connected to everything before the song is sung.
I see.
So it's this weird intentional disconnect that he does. That was what was so confusing to me. Because so the legend of Robert Johnson, we're not going to do too much of a rabbit trail here, but he was a blues
Hold
singer.
my beer.
I know. He was a blues singer back in that general time period. He died really early under some mysterious circumstances. But the reason there's so much mystery around him was because they didn't want to remember this stuff. Like, he was a Jim Crow era slave. We'll call it a slave. And he's a musician, but they didn't want to acknowledge, his accomplishments
Oh.
as that kind of a musician.
Well, but he wasn't really very good when he started. And then the weird thing was is he takes like a year, disappears for a while.
Yep.
Then he comes back, and then he's like amazing.
Yeah,
So
incredible.
like just unbelievably talented. So like, it's like that's odd. Like usually you're a prodigy, or it just takes a long time to get there. So it's strange for him to go from like 0 to 1,000, unless of course he made a deal with the devil, which is where the legend comes in.
Which
is what I choose to believe.
So there's a couple of ongoing theories. Is that he moved to a different plantation, which he sat under the tutelage of a guy named Ike Zimmerman. But the weird thing about that was that this is confirmed is that they would practice in graveyards. So there's a couple of benches out in some graveyard out there where they would play with each other, and then that particular place was about 1.5 miles from a famous crossroads. And so the crossroads legend is something to which they applied to him, and that the crossroads essentially represents, it's a turning point in your life. So it's which road are you going to choose? But it also is something that breaches the veil between the living and the dead, or the ethereal plane and the corporeal. So that when you get to the crossroads, you can essentially choose to go with an evil path or a good path. So when he went and played at the crossroads, the devil came down, tuned his guitar apparently, and handed it back and say, all right, you're going to be a famous player, but the price is your soul.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's the legend that's attributed to him, at least.
Yeah.
So when I saw this trailer, I was like, oh, so it's probably going to be playing on those themes if it's not about Johnson himself. So then I got in, okay, it's not about Johnson, but it's about the blues in this time period, so it'd be playing on those themes, right? And it has just hints. But I was like, man, why are you hinting at it? Just go for it. Like, that's fascinating material right there.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, yeah, because everything you're saying is totally in the movie, basically. Like, you got
doesn't have the crossroads, unfortunately.
Doesn't quite have the crossroads, but it does have, a blues player who's in the same kind of, situation as Robert would have been in.
At least in the plantation thing. So Sammy is the son of a preacher, and that's something that they set up early. One of the things,
But see, that just ties it even more to some of these themes, because the devil is a religious, figure as well. And they do mention how the vampires are like devils in this. So I'm like, okay, so there's clearly, like,
He's
want
got
us
the
to be
threads.
thinking about
He
that.
just didn't connect them all, I guess, the way we were expecting,
You
say.
got to connect the threads through the music.
Yeah. So that was one thing that we discussed, is a lot of extrapolation in this film. But the one theme that he sets up that he's pretty consistent about throughout the whole film is the prodigal son narrative. Because in the beginning, he goes in, his father does not want him to play the blues. He doesn't like the fact that he's got this guitar. So he brings it to church with him while he's practicing for his sermon the next day. And, so this was something that was common in the South as well, is that on Sundays, the jukes were the things that the men would go to and hang out at, and the women would go to church. And so a lot of the times they would associate, and the way that preachers are trying to get that culture to stop being that way was they would associate jukes and the blues that were being played there with the devil. And so this is how this urban legend started to form, because they were trying to get the men to come back in to the church, but this was their day of rest.
Yeah.
Working on the plantation, so they were going to go spend what little money they had resting and relaxing at these jukes.
I see.
And so that's one of the theories, at least. A lot of this is shrouded, so it's tough to find what the fact is and what the urban legends are, but this is probably where that originated, where the devil started really appearing, and like people that could play at them were like, oh, they're selling their souls, and this is how they can play this music and this devil music, etc.
Well, it's like that superstition culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of harped upon in the movie, because Sammy keeps his guitar under his bed, notices one morning that it's gone, his father had taken it, brought it to church with him, and set it on the stage while he was practicing. So Sammy had to go to church in order to get
Okay.
his guitar. And then the preacher makes him read a verse, and the verse is the one that I read earlier. It's 1 Corinthians, I believe, 10:13,
Something like that.
and it's the 10:13, 1 Corinthians 10:13, and it's no temptation has befallen you that is not common to man. But I was like, okay, I don't know how exactly this plays in, but I think that was him trying to set up this sinner's narrative.
Oh, yeah, getting back to the title.
Yeah, before he runs out and chooses that, well, I want to sing the blues. I don't want to be this preacher's son that becomes a preacher later. I want to be a blues singer. So he runs off. He leaves.
So he wants to be a sinner.
Exactly. That was like, I guess that's where you're getting the sinner's title, but he runs off to join his cousins and become a blues singer. And that's kind of where the movie begins.
Yes.
So I know that was like,
so how is it? No, that's really good because I mean, Sammy is the main character, although you don't figure that out until the last like 15 minutes of the movie.
it has you fooled for a while.
Which, funnily enough, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like the movie ends and then it's playing like the ending credits, right? And there's some visuals that go with it, but it's like, directed by whatever and all this stuff. And then it like kicks in and does another scene.
Yeah.
And it's like this 8-minute scene
The
or something like
full-on
that.
epilogue.
And there were people like leaving the theater, just walking out, and that scene started playing, and they just kept walking. I was like, "Don't you want to find out the end?"
Well,
Is
either that
more.
or they had already fully left and the scene was playing. I was like,
yeah,
because the credits, they full on start.
full on.
Like they do it, all the visuals are gone. It is black screen, and now the names start coming down. So, but the lights didn't go up, and I was like, so something else is here, obviously, unless some dude in the back forgot to throw the lights back on.
Right.
But I was like, it's got to be that something else is going on. So we waited,
Right.
thankfully.
Yeah.
And then we saw this whole
it like recontextualized the whole movie, and I was like, wait a minute, I kind of needed this scene. Why is this like? But it's just kind of a microcosm of the whole movie where you have like these moments and you go, so why is it called Sinners? What am I doing with this? And then you try to apply it to certain things. And there's like some stuff that works. Like, I mean, it's kind of a gratuitous example, but it's the best one I can think of where you have like this, at one point, these two characters sneak off in the juke joint and, they're making out and whatever. And so it's like they're like in sin or whatever. But then like, and I think it was handled only a couple of shots. It was actually kind of nicely put together. And then like someone else goes, and when they check in on them, one of them is like sucking the blood out of the other because they're like a vampire, right? So like that was like a moment where I was like, okay, I see the theme playing into it. It's like one character gives into the temptation of sin, right? And then that becomes represented symbolically with like the vampire thing. But like that moment doesn't quite work for me because the character didn't really get any kind of like development, I guess. It's just the one I'm looking for. Because, like, for neither one, actually. I didn't feel like I got, like, a satisfying, like... I don't think I was really satisfied with any of these characters other than maybe Sammy, like... And Smokes, possibly.
They're all very underdeveloped except for Smoke, probably. Sammy-ish, but only because he doesn't really have much of a story.
Well, I can work with simple. I just want like something here.
Okay, so let's recontextualize a little bit. Okay, so Sammy goes off, joins his cousins. His cousins have this kind of shady backstory. Everyone recognizes them as like these kind of criminal-esque types that had run off to Chicago and now were recognized as people that were associated with Capone potentially, but gangsters were kind of it was kind of the narrative. Yeah. So the fact that Sammy is associating with them, that I got, because I was like, okay, he's a preacher's boy. He's leaving with these, like, delinquents, essentially.
Yeah.
Kind of people that are frowned upon from both sides. From
I see, yeah.
The plantation types and from white people, because they're like, well, these guys have a criminal background that are probably pretty violent. Mm-hmm. And then they showcase that these guys are pretty violent. But they're guys that are, like...
Pretty good at killing vampires, though, gotta say.
The thing about it was, like, well, I mean, how else do you expect them to have been? Because this is the only way that they feel like they could have made a life for themselves.
Right.
So there's some kind of justification in that, which I thought was strong. That was good. So they start this thing where they're like, well, we're going to make our name a different way. We're now respected businessmen, so this is how we're gonna do it. So they buy this juke. So with all that, they now go around and start gathering in their crowd. They start
Uh-huh.
advertising, well, we've got this really great blues player, and then we're gonna bring a couple other musicians in. We've got booze from everywhere. We got Irish booze. And so they're
Yeah.
bringing in all their cultures of this environment. We want you all to show up tonight. So then, but then it shifts off. It just jumps away. So the guy that they buy the juke from apparently is like this lead KKK member.
Yeah.
He has a nephew that lives in town, and the nephew is the person that the vampire shows up and attacks. So the vampire is running away from these Indians. And this is where, like, as disconnected as it sounds that I'm talking about it right now, is as disconnected as it is in the movie.
Yeah, it just kind of was like, we're doing this scene now.
It
And
just
you're
shifts
like,
over.
"Sure."
And it's like, whoa, what's going on? This guy's like smoking, riding through the sunlight, goes up to this random plantation house. He's like, you got to save me. These guys are coming after me. So you got to let me in and let me hide from them.
Mhm.
So they invite him in. And that's like the
And of course,
common
yeah,
trope.
a vampire can't enter your home unless you invite them in, which
Right.
kudos to this movie for putting that in.
That was
Because I
great.
can't stand it when they don't acknowledge that. It's like, vampires can't enter your home unless you invite them in. So it's like the trick.
Phenomenal.
So yeah, I really
Yep,
like that
That
part.
was great. So they invite him in. The Indians show up and they're like, he is not what you think that he is. You got to let him out. And they choose to believe the vampire instead. And then they get converted. So he takes them over. And then
Which was kind of funny by that Indian because I was like, so you're just going to leave these
Right.
guys here? Like, you know this situation way better than they do.
yeah, why wouldn't you just like break in and go do something about it? Because you're like, you know how dangerous it could be, but he
Right.
didn't.
Either that
Just let it
or
go.
like I would just sit up on my carriage with my rifle and be like, that's all right. We'll wait.
Yep.
And then like it's like you could come out here, it's a lot safer, or we're just gonna wait out here and then burn it down when,
Right.
you know,
So
when
then
things go to hell.
afterwards, they go to the juke thing. Sammy's got his eye on this girl, and he sings this song. So now the song he plays breaks the veil between just essentially the veil of reality, because then you get some future things that come in. So you have like modern culture and then future culture, and then you
Yeah.
have past culture for a
Right.
bunch of different types. They had Asian culture in there, they had black culture in there, then they had some. Oh, they actually didn't have any white people in there.
Well, there's the one character who's half white.
right. I don't think they brought anything in for that scene though.
Oh.
Not that I recall anyway.
Okay, yeah.
So this thing happens, and you can see like the veil tears down, and the juke burns down, and it's kind of these like flaming pillars around it. I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah, that was rad.
But then the vampire sees that, and he's drawn to it, so he comes. But after the song is played, Sammy and this other lady that he's got his eye on go into this other room, and you find out that she's married.
Yeah.
Sammy's like a virgin, and he's just lived his life on a plantation, so he doesn't really care. He's like, I've already kind of made my decision to not live the way that my family wants, my dad wants. I'm playing the blues, so therefore I'm kind of already here. Don't really, yeah, whatever. I'll just go
Yeah.
in with this married woman. So that part, yes, felt okay. This is a Sinners type narrative that they're playing on.
And like the prodigal son thing, like he's just sort of losing his way for
Right.
a while. Yeah.
So that part felt right, but he doesn't suffer the consequences. It's the other character. So this is one of the twins. So you have Smoke and Stack. Smoke is someone
And
who's
these are the Michael B. Jordan characters.
right.
I didn't like that it was the same actor, just not that he didn't do a good enough job, but it's like he has to overact whenever he plays Stax,
Yeah.
which is the guy in red, because like he has to do more to make sure it's clear
Make sure
he's
it's
not
different.
the same person.
Yeah.
And so it's just ridiculous. You should have just hired a different actor to play Stax and then
Or
call
hire
them
some
twins.
real twins. Yeah. I don't think
Yeah,
that
or just
this,
call them like, they don't have to be identical twins. Like
sure.
for them, I get that it's like they're like it has to be, but it's like, look, a lot of this other stuff you put in this movie didn't make any sense either. So
Sure. So Smoke is the one that has more of a backstory. He's got a history.
he's got the blue hat.
He's got the blue hat. And then Stack is the one with the red hat. He's the one that's a little less developed, less story. So Smoke's got, he was a soldier. He had a child with a woman that he had grown up with at this place.
He's the more morally upright one too.
Right.
Like comparatively so, at least.
Stack doesn't seem to care. So Stack, he does have a girlfriend that he left behind that he set up with someone. He got her married. He like set her up financially, and then when he left, he's like, "You're never gonna be happy with me, so I'm gonna leave you behind." And she's upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also married. She's married. She's got a family and a home. He goes with her after she's turned into a vampire, and he reaps the consequences. I was like, okay, if you're calling this movie Sinners and you're setting up Sammy as the main and protagonist, why isn't he the one that's facing these consequences? Why is it Stack? Because it didn't seem to fit into the themes that they were playing with already. It was just kind of like, this is a cool vampire moment. What if he trusts someone and then gets bit and turned?
Yeah.
Spoilers, by the way. Sorry.
Well, I think that's actually in the trailer. You see that one of them is
Sure.
turned. But yeah, maybe the reason why they cast Michael B. Jordan as to play himself or to play like the twins is that he is the same person and there's like a good version and a bad version. Because I mean, his costuming with like the blue and the red,
Right.
I was like, this is very overtly clear that it's like, player 1 and player 2 in Contra. Player 1's always
It should have
blue,
been white and black.
player
like-
2's red. Anyways, yeah, so it was player 1 and player 2 is what I kept thinking of. And so I'm like, well, they're in Contra, it is like Lance and Bill, but like technically they're just 8-bit pixels, so they seem like the same guy to you.
Right.
Right? So maybe that's the idea, is like he is the same person. There's like a good version and an evil version, and the evil version follows down the path, or not evil, because that seems too harsh for Stax. Like I don't feel like Stax was
He's
like
not evil.
he's not like malicious
He's
or
just
evil.
not as morally upright as Smoke is.
Yeah, that's all. And it's like it wasn't like a huge. I mean,
Like
Smoke
is
had
a very
dabbled anyways with because he
Right.
was also like, but like let's just suppose for a moment that if they were one person, they would have the complexities of the kind of those separate drives, and maybe like one half suffers the consequences if he keeps going down the Stax route. Like if we follow Stax solutions to things, this is the consequences of where it'll leave.
Well,
Whereas
'cause
if we follow Smokes, eventually he will pull back from that and be like, "That's too far. I'm not doing that." Maybe that's what they were trying to do.
maybe Smoke seems like he would be the one. He's the more of like a harsh reality type. 'Cause
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
been
yeah.
through the ringer. He's the soldier. He's the one that goes out and when guys are trying to rob his truck, he just shoots them right away. He just shoots one through the butt,
Yeah.
shoots the other guy in the leg because he's like, I got a reputation to uphold. I can't just let him walk away unscathed. So you're almost like, ooh, that's kind of harsh, isn't it? But in his mind, it's like this isn't wrong necessarily.
Right.
This is making sure that nothing else happens in the future.
Right. But also he paid for their treatment. So,
did. So in the background, he's like, yeah, I'll make sure I take care of you guys, but I can't let you guys be doing this without getting away with it.
Yeah.
So
that
yeah.
was a cool character moment for sure.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And he's the one that has the most development through the film.
probably. Yeah.
Sammy is a close second, but he doesn't have as much backstory to handle. Stax kind of just gets thrown to the side.
Who did you think was the main character? Like I know we settled on Sammy when it ended, but before that point, did you just feel like it was Smokes?
The very beginning, I thought it was Sammy because you follow Sammy pretty
Oh,
regularly.
okay.
And then you jump off and follow Smoke. So then I was like, okay, so it's about Smoke then. Because Smoke's the one that goes to like the
He's doing all the recruitment stuff.
well, he does no, he doesn't. He's the one that
Well,
goes to he goes to the baby's gravesite.
Yeah.
He has the woman he left behind, but Stack was the one
Mhm.
that went and hired the harmonica player with Sammy.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like yeah, so Stack has a little bit like the woman he loved comes and finds him at the train station.
Yeah.
But it's not quite as like emotionally dramatic as Smokes is.
That's true.
So altogether, you're kind of confused as to like who am I supposed to be following here? Is it Sammy or is it Smoke? Maybe Stack, but a lot less likely. Because
Yeah,
as the
'cause-
movie goes on, it's really clear that it's Smoke. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that guy. But then at the end of the movie, it's like, no, you were looking at it wrong. It was Sammy. I was like, all right, I don't know then.
Okay, well, part of that. So yeah, it's kind of seems like if they had just decided to stick with Sammy, a lot of this confusion wouldn't be there.
Mhm.
Because if they were following Sammy, like, because Sammy he interacts with Stax like for the first like half of the movie, and then he interacts with Smoke for the second half.
Yeah.
So you could
that
interpret
part I liked, though.
Yeah, and I could see that working well if it's like, okay, like he's interpreting, he's picking up on the kind of, he's being misled by the evil
The thing about
cousin, right?
Yeah, so that might play into the red and blue thing a little bit more because when Sammy jumps off, he's got this romanticized idea of what's going to happen when he's playing blues and he gets this fame. Stack is a representation of that. He's He's kind of the like happy-go-lucky, kind of throw caution to the wind, doesn't really care too much. He doesn't have like a direction. Smoke, on the other hand, has realized the consequences of his actions, and he's someone who has allowed that to settle into maturity. So he's like
Yes.
this. He's the businessman. He's the one that makes hard decisions. He's the one that's like trying to keep Stack in line. So the second half, when he confronts Sammy, he's the one that's like, "This is probably the last time you're going to do this. You shouldn't be part of this lifestyle because I'm here as a businessman. You're here as someone that's looking for fame in an environment that's just going to get you in trouble. So
Yeah.
we're gonna kick you out."
Right.
So he's the one that's trying to bring like, "Hey, before you get into this any further, you should step away and actually have a good life."
Yeah.
And so he pushes him away in kind of a harsh way, but in a way that he knows is going to resonate with Sammy. Whereas Stax doesn't really care either way. He's like, "Yeah, I'm glad you're here, man. Like, you should use your talents. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
for it." And so but he's
Give
not
in to the
exactly,
temptation.
but he's not someone that's like looking at how that can affect someone like Sammy, who's not
Right.
careful.
You're right. He's a more moment to moment person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's their contrast, and Sammy is the one through who you can experience all that. But they don't do that through Sammy. They kind of just bounce around.
That's why it's so strange because it's not like you're really seeing the world through Sammy's perspective.
right.
So
You see it through all three of their perspectives, so it's almost like he's trying to be too empathetic with each character.
or too objective.
Or
one
too
of the
objective.
two. So yeah, it kind of because even when like Sammy's playing the song and pulling down the veil, it didn't feel like I was really. It didn't. There's not this moment where like Sammy like as he's playing, he like opens his eyes and is like, "Wow, what's happening?"
Mhm.
That never happens. He's just in it. So you just observe it like from like a fly on the wall, and that's how like the whole movie is told. I wonder if that's why some of it is a little bit.
Discombobulated.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, so we've talked about the Sinner thing.
Yep.
So you said it was 3 movies, but I don't think I got the clear picture. How? Because I think mine has to do with just the two like parallel themes or like the two parallel styles. I guess I would say is just like the action horror vampire slaying movie. Um, it's like we were talking afterwards. It almost felt like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer was going to show up at the end and just
I
start
kind of wish he
butchering.
did.
Yeah, it kind of would have fit.
It would've been
Honestly, it would have
awesome.
fit that other half. It's like there are two like thresholds, right? And one was like vampire horror movie. It's like that got increasingly more relevant as the movie went on, but the other one was that like kind of like historical, like social commentary kind of stuff, like just a more thoughtful, like drama movie, especially because some of the relationships are pretty serious. And so, like, in that one, it's like it kind of starts with that and then it like goes up and then it just kind of drops. So you've got this like weird motion that happens with the movie, but you seem to see it as like it's like the first act is one type of movie.
Right.
The second act is never. So what are these types of movies for each act then?
Well, okay, so the reason that I think it's so disconnected is because they introduce the vampire separately.
Yes.
Because he's entirely separate. Like, he's so disconnected. You're like, does he belong in here? Is this something the editor like threw in by accident? So you've got that part, and then you've got the blues part. So that's where it begins. So you've got the Sammy portion and his family ties, and then
Okay.
him playing at the juke. And then you got the vampire that's introduced, and then you've got where they connect. And that's where I kind of see that as like the third film. Because now it's no longer about the juke or about the vampire. It's about now them surviving this vampire that's like slowly converting them. He's slowly taking them down one by one, and it's just about taking him out. Because they
Yeah.
don't connect that either.
No.
That's why I find it kind of as like a third film. Because in my opinion, like, I'm wondering if I should just do the HolmFront fixes now to kind of contextualize that. So I have a
What would you
HolmFront.
would have done?
Yeah.
You're so smart.
So smart. It's not that I'm smarter than the filmmakers or the writers or anything, but here's what I thought it would be is that when Sammy pierces the veil with the song,
Mm-hmm.
so I have two kind of fixes, I guess. First, he makes a deal with the devil. So he goes to the crossroads to become an incredible musician, right?
Mm-hmm. Or that's the backstory you find out later.
That's what I would
revealed.
have done, yeah, to where it's like, okay, he did this, even though he's a preacher's son. Maybe he found out because he's a preacher's son what he could do. He's like, oh, I can go to a crossroads and become a famous musician. So this is the deal I'll make.
Okay.
So he goes and makes it. And then when he pierces the veil, this vampire is something that represents someone coming to collect his debts. That's how I would have written it.
Yeah. That makes
He's like a
sense.
representation of the devil, right? And
Yeah,
so he's coming down. He's like, well, you got your night of fame, so I'm coming to collect your soul.
exactly.
So that's what I thought, because then it would have connected it
uh-huh.
rather than the vampire feeling so disconnected.
Well, yeah, because the vampire's motivation is just like, I'm a vampire.
Right. I want more vampires, or I want to pierce the veil of the living and the dead, or whatever.
He wants like some musical number, but I really didn't connect with that, which is more my fault. But I was just like, why do vampires give a crap about music? I was like, that makes no sense to me.
Well, because he represents the living and the dead, right? Because he's undead. And so,
Yeah.
mythologically, I understand why you would choose a vampire. I just don't know how he connects to Sammy's story. And it doesn't feel like the writer
Gotcha.
did either. The other thing that would have been interesting is if you take out the crossroads and the deal altogether, when you pierce the veil, it might have been interesting if now the vampire is something that's created because he's pierced the veil of the living and the dead. So he creates an undead thing.
Mm.
So this is like the evil consequence of his sin. So his action,
As determined by playing in the juke, which is not necessarily a sin, but just like
Right.
within the context of the time period and the superstition, it would
Right.
be. I see what you're saying.
of the thing that people feared is like,
Yeah.
that is an activity of the devil. That is the devil's music. And so
It's
he's
like playing Dungeons and Dragons in
Right,
1970.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then he's like, that's not true. Like, this is just really good music, and this is what I want to do. And then he finds out, oh, maybe this was something with consequences, and he brings in the vampire. So now he has to face those consequences.
Yeah.
This would lead to an ending that I was really disappointed didn't happen. So he sings a song that pierces the veil. I was like, why wouldn't you sing a song that, like, closes it back up? It would have been so cool if he sings a song that, like, banishes the vampire. So I was like, come on. But
That
instead
would
he
have been
beats
awesome
it to death
if
or
he was
whatever.
just like,
Yeah,
and then it was like, and sucked back in.
Sucks back into the void. But it didn't happen. I was like,
Well, yeah, because serenading the creatures back to sleep is the idea,
sure.
and with like the kind of real world lore and history that it's talking about. Yeah, because I mean, what's the alternative here? Like you said, he just like beats him to death and then he dies.
Yeah, it straight up
Pretty
pulls
much it.
a signs at the end. It was like,
Oh, it kind of does.
it does. Because
Oof.
he smacks him with the guitar and then, holds him there until the sun rises. I was like, this isn't this.
Well, now it seems lame when you put it like that.
That's how I felt when I was like, this.
Yeah.
This isn't the ending that this movie set up. It just kind of veered off.
Well, it didn't. It is kind of though, because it didn't do all the setup stuff that you're
guess.
talking about too.
This is all my expectation that I'm just reading into the film. So
but it's
bad.
Doing too much dabbling is the thing. It's making all of these references, and you're going, "Ooh, interesting," and then it's like, well, I don't know. They're just there.
Yeah, he kept walking down a little bit of the road and then going back to the main road. And like, okay, stop doing that. Go, just pick one. Choose one.
Yeah. Well, maybe he was at a crossroad when he was
this is a lot more meta than we expected it to be.
Maybe, too, the reason why this movie is doing so well is because he made a deal with the devil when he made this movie. So he did
We're on
that.
to you, Mr. Coogler.
Right. So Coogler did that, and he's like, I'll just make a great movie. And then somehow it's a great movie. That's why everyone loves it. No one can say anything bad about it. I mean, it's like 98s across the board.
It's like a 97, 98
crazy
right now.
amount of praise for this movie. But then, you better watch out, Coogler.
Yep. We should pay attention to what happens to Coogler.
Everybody look out for him.
Speaking of which, I'm actually going to pull up some of those reviews.
Oh, no.
So stall for me while I do this.
Well, okay. Well, I guess I should figure out what my fix of this movie would be. But it's like, it's hard to say. Maybe I need some inspiration too. So make sure you go to the audience because they're a lot more entertaining.
Well, go ahead and do your fixes and then we'll jump into that.
Well, I don't know.
Or if you would you fix it?
Yeah, I mean, I something has to change. Like, I don't want to like tamper it too much because I feel like because to me, what I and like talking about the movie and thinking about it some more and doing more research on like what was it, Robert Johnson. I feel like I would have just made like the Robert Johnson story.
Yeah.
Because that's just super fascinating.
Right.
So I would have had him, be this musician, this blues player in the 1930s, and I would have had it so just like the legend depicts it. So like he disappears like he's terrible, then he disappears for a year, and then he learns it, but like in the process of learning it, he's not actually getting better, and then he has that crossroads with the devil, and then he makes the deal. But I would leave it like kind of like, did he make the deal or did he not? And then the rest of it, the movie would just be following like the severe consequences of both sides, because you get like the good and the bad. You get the talent, but then you get the destruction. But that's like a completely different movie. So I feel like that's not really even fair to ask of it. So if he just wants like the inspiration there, like I feel like that's fine. I don't know. You seem to want like more of the mythological element to it.
So did he. Because
Fair
he
enough.
does play on it, but he doesn't commit.
Yeah.
Like, well, then why would you do it at all? Either
Yeah.
commit or don't. I just
So, okay, here's what I would have done. Now, my changes are not going to satisfy you.
That's fine.
They're probably not worthwhile, but I would have just done some quick fixes. So, for one, we didn't talk about it before, but in the first like 20 minutes of this movie, it's very hard to hear what anybody's saying.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know what it was. I think because at first I was like, oh, well, that was just the line. And then I was like, oh, well, that's just that actor. And then I was like, oh, well, that was just the kind of performance they asked. And then at some point I was like, is it just the sound mixing? Like, what's going on? Why is it hard to make out what people are saying? And like you get the gist of it, but there is like these gaps. So I would have leaned harder into one of those two directions. It's always good to go big or go home. That's my philosophy. So I would have been like mumble more or mumble less. That's what I would have done. And if it's mumble more, I'd have been like more music, crank that up. And this is
Right.
just going to be a vibes movie from beginning to end. It's almost like a musical. And I would have just leaned hard in that direction. Not that everybody needs to be mumbling, but in other words, I would have like scaled back on how much dialogue we need. I would have done more visual storytelling, because he did have kind of some boring like shot over the shoulder shot stuff in that early part. So I was like, oh, and then it like got more interesting when they got to the juke. Then we had some more stuff to play with, and I was like, okay, it's getting more engaging. So I would have done like one of those two things, right, and kind of patched up that element. And then when it came to the vampire stuff, I'm gonna have to agree with one of those audiences. Kind of not enough blood or not enough action, really. So I would have had like the fight against the vampires that needed to be a little longer, and I would have had more action, just like more shots of like them just like driving stakes through vampire hearts and blasting vampires. Like what you get is great, but it's just not quite enough for a satisfying action movie for me. So I would have like leaned, and again, if I'm going more with this like feels vibe movie, then I can get away with just like the intensity of like the action, the drama of the action, right? And I don't have to lean so much on all the story crap. So I guess that they kind of would have played into each other. I guess what I would have done is like strip the narrative, like the writing actually back, and then just let the vibes go all the way up and be like, hey, music is about vibes. And then I would have and I probably would have done more like cool mythological cinematic things too. Like when he breaks down the veil, like I like how they depicted that visually, but more. I would have been like, let's actually see like, because there's this one part in the movie that's really cool where this guy like steps out to take a piss, and he's out in like the woods or whatever, and you can see like these yellow eyes in the woods, and then they like appear and then like disappear, and they like whisper to him. It's like, that's awesome. More like that. I want a shot like that where it's just those like yellow eyes, and then like you see the like a black like shadow come down, and then the vampires start walking out from the woods. I would have done cool like things like that to make it more like the myth is actually happening. And then I probably would have also just committed to just like, it's either Sammy or Smoke, one of the two. We can't do both here. I like what you're saying, like the Sammy perspective thing. So I probably would have done more like we are getting it from his point of view. And maybe the story is as simple as just he makes a deal with the devil, and then he gets all the consequences therein, and the end. And like maybe it doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Yeah, maybe. Because if you go with something a little bit more vague, like a more vibes film, you can easily allow the audience to do all your work for you.
Well, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
they're going to be reading that stuff into it. So you just allow hints of what it could be.
Right.
And just let each person kind of pick whatever they want to believe.
But see why I'm so hesitant is I kind of feel like maybe that's what he did. Like maybe it is there and I just need to see it again, and like I need to pay closer attention, and I need to go to Mississippi, and I need to go to like museums in Mississippi and like talk to the locals and do like research,
Sure.
and then it would like start to really connect more. But I also just kind of feel like this is kind of a criticism on music, but sometimes musicians, I feel, they'll take this stance where they're like, no, the theme is there. The theme is there. Don't you get it? And I'm like, it's there because you're projecting it onto your music. You can't do that. It does match when you project it. But if you don't project it, it's not really there. And I kind of feel that way about like the whole movie. It's like what you want to read into it, you will get out of it. But if you don't do any reading into it, it's not really going to narratively come together. And that's where it's like kind of a disappointment for me, is because I feel like you should always be doing both. You should always have the surface level narrative that everybody gets from your movie. And then you have the depth that for people who want to invest more, they get something out of it that's on a deeper level, right? And so that's where I feel like the movie kind of is that missed opportunity. It's not that it's bad. It's just like either you've got to watch it more times to really dig into that. But because we talked about it when we got out of the theater, it was like I'm hesitant to just read into it because it felt like there's this, rock song playing where they're killing vampires. And I'm like, that made me think I wasn't supposed to be digging deep into it. Right. But then it's like there's other things that make you think that you should. So it's kind of like this, you don't want to because it's not fair. Like imagine you're watching like, The Accountant 2 or The Amateur, and you try to project some like deep philosophical concept.
Not gonna happen.
Like it's not really fair to that movie. Like those are probably really bad movies, but they're bad movies just because they're generic and lame, not because they aren't deep. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, it's not trying to be anything more than just a action film. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I guess. But I feel like I'm not willing to give up on this movie. Like I would be willing to rewatch it again. I mean, I'd rather rewatch that than The Amateur.
Agreed. That's fair.
Just like, I'll watch this one again. That was at least interesting. Cool era. I love the era. Freaking awesome being there.
Yeah, the mythology of that era is fascinating. The thing about
because it's like science is starting to come in, but it's not settled enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so the more aware you are of historical facts of the era, mythological facts of the era, and then just general, I guess, mythological interest in with vampires, let's say, because that's the other thing is that he goes a lot of different directions, and he does it so much that even the ones that may not have been intended as a direction will confuse you. So there's a song specifically that the vampire sings, and it's an Irish jig. It's like the Road to Dublin.
Oh, Rocky Road to Dublin.
Rocky Road to Dublin. And we were trying to figure out why is that song there? Why? I was like looking at it, I was like, did vampires originate in Ireland? And that's not true.
No.
Are they like prevalent out there? Nope. It's like, does the song have something to do with the themes of and the closest I can get is that the song seems to resonate with the prodigal son narrative.
Okay.
And so I was like, well,
that would make sense with Sammy's character.
It would, but why is the vampire singing it? Like, is he trying to communicate with Sammy? Because why would he be singing a prodigal son narrative song to Sammy? Because he wants Sammy to go further into the dark, essentially.
Like, what you're saying is basically because there's such a disconnect that when the vampire is singing this song to Sammy, it doesn't work for you because you're thinking about this from like the narrative viewpoint, and the narrative viewpoint has no justification for any correlation between the two of them, which makes perfect sense. If you just look at it symbolically, then it can make a little bit more sense because, I mean, the Irish, they have a really rough, rocky history as well. So I thought
that was the other thing we talked about too, is that maybe he's playing on themes of slavery because the Irish also suffered that in America at that time. But
so if that's the case, then it's more like, because the vampires talk about how it's better this way. Like, let us kill you because then you'll be one of us. And then you'll be like, we share each other's memories and things like that. And then you live forever, and it's like a better way to live or whatever.
Well, that was what our mutual friends said, is that under oppression, you tend to search for a community that might damage your values just to have a community that's not as oppressed.
Yeah,
And it might include some stuff that you're going to disagree with, but that was one of the points in the film that was kind of fascinating, was that the vampire came in and was like, look, you can just be one of us. We rule the night, essentially, and we can fight back and be our own family. We don't have to worry about skin color. We don't have to worry about oppression and
right.
slavery and all this kind of stuff. Like, you can be one of us. But what does that come with? It comes with this vampire invading your mind, essentially. You become this undead thing that's not, and you feed on blood. You've got to go kill people for it.
Right, and there's no rest. That was
Right,
at least the
there's no
counterpoint, because one of the characters seems to know about vampires really well, which that was never really explained. I mean, she was into like voodoo stuff or whatever,
Right.
but still. Anyway, she was like, well, yeah, you're neither living nor dead, and she resists it really hard. She's like, hey, if I get bit or something, you got to take me out. Like, just do me in, because I don't want to be that thing. So, I mean, it was funny when they're trying to like pitch this to them, though, because they're standing at the threshold. They obviously can't go into the juke because they need to be invited, and they're like, well, you could come out here and then we'll kill you. Doesn't that sound good? And I was like, well, I don't know.
Not when you word it like that. That's not my favorite.
A tempting offer. Do I want to step out there and get killed?
Especially after they saw it happening.
Right.
They're like, I don't know if I want that.
They see their friends like it's like
when I started the night, I thought I was just going to want some music, but
yeah,
I'm going to get a side of that.
Maybe a boo here, a couple of drinks, and then that's it. But no, now you've raised the stakes. I'm going to think about that one.
The one scene I thought was hilarious was when the guy behind the bar, he drinks too much and knocks himself out, and he spills his wine. It looks like there's blood on the floor, so they all think he's dead, and they toss him outside with the vampires. And then they're like, wait,
out there?
What's on the... That's wine. They totally throw him to his death.
And then he's like, let me back in. It's like,
sorry,
this guy
bud.
sound like a vampire to me. Well, that was interesting, too, because it was like a moment of, listen to how easy it is for you to be,
right, to be
like
suspicious.
flipped, or to be suspicious, but also to be flipped onto the other side.
Right.
And like the idea of there being sides, because with the vampire, it was like, well, in their mind, they were like, well, there is no sides. We're all vampires, so we're all together. We're united. But it's like you guys yourselves are the ones that want to kill us hanging out in the juke.
Right.
So there's clearly a side here. I get from your perspective, it's great that everybody could just be united, but like there's living in an undead here. So you have to contend with that, and you're just acting like there's no barrier. But like,
right.
I contest, you need to be invited in. So there is a barrier.
There's a barrier. Barrier of entry, one would say.
You wouldn't even be here if we hadn't even taken down the veil. So that's another barrier. So there's barriers all over the place.
That's not true, because he shows up before the barriers or the veil's taken down.
Well,
this is my contention of the film. But
true, but also, like, would he have found the juke specifically?
No.
Without the music?
He was drawn by the song, yeah.
He was drawn by the song. So, like, he existed, which arguably he shouldn't have without the song, but, like, it is the song that gets him
right. That brings him forth.
It's like, I feel like as we describe it, it makes more sense in hindsight.
But it also makes less sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
okay, so let's do some
well, the original night, when I looked it up, those horrible ones are right up front. I can't find them now.
Oh, they disappeared?
I was scrolling through, and it actually seems like they're well-written ones. So...
Yeah, the good ones are... you got to catch them while they're hot. It's usually that first crop of... Usually I'll like snap a photo or something if I get a really good one. Sometimes I send them to him, and I'm like, listen to this. And then he'll just be like, hold on, let me put that through Google Translate.
Figure out what that actually meant.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, all in all, this movie is very highly praised at the moment. Right out the gate, it's gotten some high ratings. So I'm curious to see as time goes on if it starts to weed down a little bit.
What the treatment will be, yeah.
But let me ask the age-old question for the show. Would you recommend it?
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend it. I mean, because it is like just temper your expectations. Like, everyone's talking it up like it's great. I don't know that this is going to be like a 5-star favorite movie for most people. But I don't think anyone's going to rate it lower than, like, in good faith, I don't think you can lower it than, like, less than a 3-star or 3 out of 5. Because, like, there's really good stuff here. Like the music's awesome.
Mhm.
Like even when it's like rock music and stuff, even that was awesome.
Yeah,
Like
that's fair.
it all totally fit. Like each individual moment, like the individual scenes all work. It's just like the thread that connects everything is like, huh.
Almost
So
non-existent.
yeah, so you got to figure out what kind of apparatus you're going to use to interpret the movie. Once you've figured that out, you'll probably appreciate it even more. But before that point, like I still enjoyed myself. I was still entertained and engaged. Like I liked, I liked how they depicted everything, like the world and the setting. I liked the veil and the vampire look. Like I like how they have like just these like little red eyes that kind of come and go. I like how they play into like, vampires can't cross the threshold without the invitation and some of those ideas and like holy water and garlic and stuff. Like there's this really funny scene where they're making everybody like eat garlic because they're
Yeah.
trying to figure out who's a vampire and who's not. And someone's like, I don't know. They're like, oh, that's disgusting. I don't want to eat that. And they're like, you're going to eat that garlic. Pulling a gun on her and stuff. It's like,
Like
eat
sounds
the
like
garlic.
something a vampire would say. You better eat it, or I'm gonna shoot you in the face. Like, oh.
I know. But
And
they
then she ends up choking it down.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah, it's just like gagging and stuff. And they're like, she might be a vampire.
when she passes the test, she actually just doesn't like garlic.
Yeah, she just doesn't like garlic. But it was so funny how they were just like, you could be. I mean, and not in a bad way. Like, I was with them. I was like, if I was in that room, I'd been like, put the gun on her. Like, you eat that garlic.
Yeah.
I'm eating the garlic. You got to eat it. Like, I got to make sure you're not one of them.
Yeah,
I got to be extra careful. I mean, if I was in that scenario, I'd be like, I don't want to be a vampire.
right. But
So
you don't
eat the
know if
garlic.
someone is or not. But that's the fear, right? The fear of who among us is not one of us.
Yeah.
Or who was one of us and now no longer.
Well, that was kind of the crazy thing too. Is like, I thought that they were gonna like slowly chip away at the characters in the juke, and it kind of starts that way, but then very quickly they get like everyone, and then you're like, it's like they get like all the attendees except for like the last like 6 or 8 or whoever it was at the main
Yeah.
cast. And I'm like, whoa, they converted them like instantly. That was fast. And it happens in a way that makes sense in the movie. I was just like, oof, is everybody just going to walk on outside?
Yeah, it makes you wonder how they're
Sheesh.
going to extend the length, but they do a pretty good job with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I would recommend this film.
Yeah.
It probably, on my scale, would probably be a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Yeah. I mean, I'm like either 3 or 4. It depends on like, I feel like I would enjoy it more if I saw it again.
Yeah, maybe. I'd be willing to up my level if I found that I liked it better the second time around. But I think again, most of my subjective opinion comes from the disappointment of my expectations.
But they were expectations that the film brings up.
Fair. That's fair.
So that's where
So
it's
whose
like,
fault is this, Coogler?
I mean, I feel like I want to see it again, but I also feel like I won't like it any more or less than I do now.
I mean, what if you like it less?
I don't think I'll like it less. I would be very surprised if I liked it less, but I just would be very also surprised if I liked it more. It just is what it is.
Just kind of exists as it does.
And that's usually like, sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I need to let that one bake or whatever. I let this one bake for a few days and I'm like, I'm not going to have a different opinion about this movie. I really don't think I will. Like,
I did a whole bunch of research and looking into this stuff.
this
and
movie was killing you.
it just made me more confused. I was like, maybe he just wasn't trying to connect all this stuff, and I'm trying to do it for him.
Probably.
Because in my mind, I'm like, well, were vampires like part of the black culture at the time? Like, is that just something mythological to them, or is this,
No.
or does this have something to do with the Irish culture? Like, why the Irish song? And I was just like, trying to connect all these dots. Like, I almost went
you
with
had
a board,
a board with like,
all the
yeah,
string.
tacks and
Like,
string.
how does this connect to that? Well, it doesn't though. So maybe he was thinking, like, oh, does this go here? Like, and I was like, I'm doing way too much work. This must not be that deep. It was just, he just thought, oh, a vampire represents undead, and piercing the veil like kind of has connotations of undead. It's not living. It's not dead. It's
Mhm.
just something in between, and that's what it is. And yeah, I'm gonna call
Yeah.
back to Crossroads, but I don't need Crossroads. I'll just have the character that represents Johnson.
Right.
Like maybe I just need to oversimplify this, and then I won't be as disappointed.
Yeah, like, yeah, perhaps. Because, I mean, there's also, like, anytime I take a theme and try to apply it, like choosing paths or temptation or whatever, there's enough in the movie to, like, put something together, but I don't feel satisfied because I feel like I have to fill in the holes, the gaps, and I got to do some projection work. And I'm like, it should just be in the movie, though. And, like,
Agreed.
and like, there's too many other things that might like potentially work against it or give like a different meaning to it, or they're just like they don't feel like they're really driving that point home like I would kind of expect. Like if you want the twins, one to be like, like the one who's like responsible or whatever, and the other who's just kind of like willing to take chances, then why do they both have romantic partners, like romantic flings
From
the past that are like very equivalent to each other? I'm like, that's just kind of odd. Like, there wasn't enough deviation between the two for it to like
fair.
reinforce that. Or like, how come Stax doesn't get Sammy into real trouble because of, you know what I mean? It's like you would think that would happen if you want to lean on the message of, well, it's because he's player 2, he's the bad guy, he's red, or he's like,
he's the more ambiguous moral type.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
But like those things don't happen. So then you're like, should I even say that at the movie?
Sure. Yeah. Is that a fair expectation to have had?
Yeah, and then it puts you into a phase where you think, well, it's just killing vampires. It's just a vampire movie,
Which it's also not.
but it's also not that because I mean, it doesn't even end with like. Well, I guess it technically does when you include the epilogue, but before that point, like they solve the vampire situation, and then there's like the main villain they got to deal with, like outside of that.
Yeah.
And there's this whole like shootout scene. And you were like, whoa, okay, so we got this too. And that was
Right.
kind of like, it was transitioning, and that was like a more like realistic thing. So it was almost like, it was kind of like they were taking
The themes of the film that were symbolically embodying these things and then putting it into a realistic scenario.
Yes, exactly. That was an interesting choice. I'll give them that one.
Which was the other thing that threw further confusion. So I was like, okay, so is this contextualizing the rest of the film into this narrative now? And I think we'll leave that vague because I think that's interesting. Is that end scene, that end shootout, and then the epilogue scene both kind of recontextualize the film? But it was like, so all these expectations you're setting me up for have now been changed by these two scenes, but these two scenes are also discombobulated because you do one and then you do the other, and then this one is like pulling on the other themes that you set up initially. They contradict the ones that you did in the shootout. So I was like, well, so which one is it?
Think it too hard.
Maybe.
It's just a vampire movie.
Yep. With the blues.
There's a scene where like he just does the and blows a vampire away. So I was satisfied.
Great.
You can't give it less than a 3-star
And
because of that.
There's a Tommy gun in there, which is shown in the trailer.
Exactly.
Worth it. I love that we've just gone down to the fact that he dual wields and carries a Tommy gun, and that's worth seeing the film for.
Well, it's like
What else do you want from me?
it's like I'm trying all this like intellectual stuff, and it's like hard. It's like too much work. I'm like, this shouldn't be that difficult. It's easier to interpret Plato. Like, come on, man.
Fair. All in all, we recommend the movie.
Yeah.
Probably a solid 3 out of 5 for HolmFront here.
But I mean, comparatively with movies today, it's like
I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And I think we can both say that, like, it was nice to just go enjoy a movie.
Yeah, it was nice to sit down in a theater and be like, this is cool. Like, there's a lot of cool moments, cool scenes. It doesn't connect,
concepts.
But yeah, cool concepts, cool ideas. Like, maybe they don't all land, but I mean, it was still like a good time. I appreciated that it was something original too, just like an original story.
Agreed.
Oh gosh, so many like
wasn't-
sequels and remakes.
It wasn't beating you over the head with agenda-driven themes either.
Right.
It was kind of just like, this is what it would be like in this time period. We're not trying to really demonize anybody. We're not trying to like uphold anybody.
It wasn't the like let's regurgitate the slave narrative for the umpteenth time.
Right.
Like that was a theme in it because it's like a part of the time period.
Yeah.
So it was a really natural inclusion, and they don't really talk about it that much. It's just like another one of those kind of disparate themes that you can apply to the movie or not, and then look at it differently, right? Depending on I guess depending on your mood when you watch the movie.
It's a vibes movie, right? Isn't that the
yeah, it's your vibe, I guess.
Well,
wish I could have given you more, but that's what I got.
Again, would recommend. Any other closing thoughts?
No, it's a cool movie.
Go see it, especially compared to the other stuff that's currently out. Enjoy. So you made it to the end of the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought.